What's up? So,
Lost copy.
it's on like Lost Copy. T Dude, today we're talking Last Boy Scout. Little Bruce Willis in his prime, Damon Wayans in an odd role, early Halle Berry, top notch screenplay by Shane Black. Green, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. I love this movie. Last Boy
Dude,
Scout, Shane Black masterpiece. He got also highest paid screenplay at the time for a screenwriter.
good
Got
call.
almost 2 million bucks for it. So
Yeah, this is
that's
before the
pretty cool.
Boondock. This is before the Boondock Saints shakedown. Right?
Yeah.
Where the bartender got all that money just to write and direct Boondock Saints. No, man, like this movie when it came out, I was like, all right, it's just another Bruce Willis, because he done like Hudson Hawk and like that kind of weird crap, and I was like, Last Boy Scout, but it did revolve around football, and I was like, and it's got a lot of good people, so I went to it thinking it was like blockbustery, but it was far from it. Like the script was not your normal like, oh, this is a popcorn film, even though it is a popcorn film. So it's really hard to categorize for me, which is why I like it. And it also is one of the few films that I know of, and I'll kick it back to you on this, where a comedian plays a villain. To me, that's really unusual about this whole movie because, like, Taylor Negron, like, he's the mailman in How I Got Into College, and now he's this guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know, man.
He's
Thoughts
also
on that?
he's also the mailman in um Better Off Dead,
Yeah,
correct?
it's one of those. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, How I Got Into College. Same thing. Steve Savage, Steve Holland, but different movie.
Yep. Yep.
You're right. You're right.
So yeah, the for it is hard to categorize. There's a lot of action, a lot of jump scare type actions too. Like a lot of unexpected explosions happen in this movie.
It's right in the
Um,
first 10 minutes.
yeah, a ton. Uh, Also, the movie starts with a very known pitchman
Oh,
with
Tybo?
Tybo, Billy Blanks playing Billy Cole. And what's funny about the Milo character, who always calls everybody by their first name, their complete first name. So I didn't catch this until I rewatched it just the other night. But when Billy Cole's in the locker room, he gets a phone call during halftime of
He goes,
a
hello,
football
William.
game. Yeah, and he says, "Hello, William." And I never caught that at first that he's actually talking to Milo
That's
on the phone
awesome.
at the very start of the movie, um, which obviously goes on to where he's shooting people and shoots himself in the end zone. And that is definitely a way to catch everybody's
Oh
attention.
my gosh.
Um, so
Insane.
So yeah, so
That
like you said, it's hard to categorize because it's got that football sports element. It's got a lot of like big action pieces to it. Also, kind of a buddy cop film
it
in a
is, but
lot of
it's also
ways.
but it's also political.
There's a political
Like
slant to
what?
it. There's so much going. I was thinking about this too. There's so much going on in the Last Boy Scout. You're like, it is hard to categorize because the hero is basically a dirtbag, but the reason he's a dirtbag is because he was thrown out from saving a girl from the
Right.
senator beating her. And the reason he's even on the senator detail is because he was shot saving the president, who is supposed to be Jimmy Carter, but it looks like you and I made that Jimmy Carter mask like in with like paper mache or something. It's pretty bad. It looks
It's
more like
classic
it
though.
looks more
You're
like Gary Busey than Jimmy Carter, but
or Gary Cole. Oh, fucking Gary
that's
Cole.
legit. No, legit.
Hey, he's in Simple Plan, which we'll get to some point. No, I love it, man. Like the way it starts out too, like Mike McGill, like I think that's his name, Bruce McGill, I think his name is, comes out of the closet, D-Day from Animal House, and then he's like, it's just odd. The whole thing starts off, and then you're like, what's going on? And then there's that whole thing about the divorce, and then he meets Damon Wayans and Holly Berry, and like you get a little confused. But I think for me, the whole time this movie's going is I'm having a blast. Like no matter what's going on, I'm like, oh, this is fun. Oh, this is fun. Like even the dumb scenes where he goes to his ex-wife's and like, his daughter's like, saying, fuck you. And he's like, don't talk to me like that. And she's like, fuck you, you don't even live here. Like that stuff's fun. Like all of it's fun. And escalating, of course, with the Taylor Negron takeover and the scene at the end, which I'll get to, where he's like, touch me again, I'm gonna kill you.
Well, he also has the classic Shane Black, like well, like before that scene where there's an explosion with the car, um, and two thugs go to pick up uh Damon Wayans and Bruce Willis, and that's when you're like saying like, oh, like the inventor of Scrabble's here to take us away
Oh, I love it.
because the guy keeps dropping all of these 50-cent words, and like of course nobody's doing or another Shane Black type situation is where the guy's going to go shoot Bruce Willis in the back alley, and he keeps telling all these fat jokes,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and the guy's like, I got to hear this last fat joke, and of course he gets like he takes the guy over like during after he's like
Right,
because
right.
the guy's laughing so hard, like it's so
It's Shane Black.
that's such a Shane Black like '90s movie to a T because a lot of like imitators came after this too,
Yeah.
where a lot of people are trying to put those zingers in the middle of like these big action sequences.
Between this and Long Kiss Goodnight, I mean, to me, that's enough to put him on me like two of the finer action films of the '90s with good scripts, and it's all Shane Black.
Well,
Two
like,
very different movies too.
when I watch like a movie like Bad Boys,
Yeah.
it's like has its roots in The Last Boy Scout,
Oh
at least
yeah,
part of it. Like
I would agree.
all the humor, big action, one-liners. Um,
And then you can even go up to like Get Hard and what's the one with The Rock and freaking I can't think of it now, but no, all the buddy cop, even Lethal Weapon,
oh yeah, yeah.
which came before this, like they all weave together, but this one was different just because A, there was a ton of people in it. B, it involved a cop and a football player. Like he wasn't a cop, but yet he was on in this movie. So the whole thing was odd because it was like an odd duo. So it had some 70s overtones to it, like where it's like two oddballs are now solving crimes. I also like the way it was shot. Like the whole Ridley Scott or who directed? Yeah, Ridley Scott.
Tony
Um
Scott.
Tony Scott. It's got like you can see all the true romance like precursors like I mean that came with true romance, the same lighting, the same close-ups, everybody's unshaven. I don't know, it's very atmospheric and you don't catch it until you watch it again and again because you're laughing half the time and then scared half the time. But I don't know, just the way he shoots things, it's like he's like Michael Mann on steroids.
Well, he
Whereas
definitely has
Michael
like
Mann's subtle, he's like bling 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 bling, but it's good, it works.
it's yeah. There's definitely like in like the cop stations. So in the police stations, doesn't seem there's ever any windows. It's always kind of like dim lighting.
Yes.
Um, he also has that one, I
Yet there's
guess,
sun peeking through a blind,
yeah, yeah, and he
a
always
little
had
ray,
to
the
show you like
ray.
the dust coming through, and
Right.
but there's always like the captain, for lack of a better word, that sits at the desk and he's like, Joe Hallenbeck, everything that he says is like because it's 80% truth. He's like, this thing is bullshit. This report's bullshit. Like
The
he's
chief.
like, yeah, and he can't ever figure out why. And then when he thinks he has figured out why, then he thinks like Joe Hallenbeck is like the guy committing some of these crimes. It's just again like that part's so ridiculous,
But it
but
works.
but it's in there.
So
So
here's basically the synopsis of this film. So Joe Hallenbach is like an ex-cop, ex-Secret Service, and he's just like a PI. And he basically gets bamboozled in this thing because his wife's sleeping with a guy that he used to know who's also inside the force. And he gives him a job, but little does he know that he's kind of like being set up. And he gets in with all these shady characters because someone's blackmailing this ex-NFL star. Turns out to be a big gambling ring with political ties. And this, so basically, it's like this fish out of water, down on luck down on his luck private investigator gets embroiled in a much higher than him conspiracy. But the way he escalates into it from sleeping in a car with a dead squirrel on him all the way to the last scene, where he's like, poolside with the enemies, like it's just cool because like you said, you root for him even though he's kind of a loser and kind of an ass, which is cool, which is cool. So in the end, it works. And especially like I don't know, I love the last 20 minutes of the stadium is a lot of fun for me. I
Mhm.
think plus the way he shot it, and but I don't know. It's one of those movies too, and I think you'll agree that if I'm flipping through channels and it's on, I'll be like, oh, Last Boy Scout. I was like, put the remote down. I was like,
Yes.
I'll watch this right now. I
Yeah,
was
this is
like, come on,
definitely
Jimmy Dix.
definitely a flip stopper.
And
Um,
and I think Damon Wayans was just like off in Living Color at the time. Like he wasn't a big star at all. In fact, that might be one of, in my opinion, probably his best movie that I've ever seen him in. Now, I didn't see some of his, Major Pain and all that crap, but he wasn't a big star at the time, but Bruce Willis was, so
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know.
Well, uh, I think definitely this would be more of the vehicle where became a bigger star than Major
Yeah.
Payne for
So
sure.
did Holly
So,
Berry. When
so yeah, so like Holly Berry,
Corey, she's
yep.
like, if you want to ride, you can
So so
do,
she plays
ride
a
the
stripper,
white horse.
and and Damon Wayans
Corey.
is her boyfriend,
Yep.
and she's getting followed, she's getting harassed, she's trying to get his job back. He's been kicked out of the league for gambling. She's going to do that by blackmailing the owner to get his job back. He doesn't know this. She's getting followed because of that. She
And that's
hires
why
Joe.
these,
She hires
exactly.
Joe Hallenbeck, and so like right before she meets her demise, um, driving a super cool Corvette, um,
Yep.
like Damon Wayans like says he'll bitch slap somebody, which is like that's where that
Right.
word like
Right.
sprang into
Came
like
out. Yeah. The
the major lexicon.
zeitgeist.
Yeah, the zeitgeist. So it's like I always like to point that out just because it's like such a funny place to just see that like actually occur. Like you can say like
Sure.
here's where this happened.
Yep.
Um,
No, you're right. And after that, like the movie just gets more fun and more crazy as it goes. Like you said, you mentioned earlier about the one where he had the puppet in his hand. He's like, here's I'm and his daughter like who hates him basically like kind of helps him in the end. It's
yeah.
like the kind that shoots bullets. He's like, oh, it's like what? It's like did the daughter just save the day? It's like stuff like that. You're like, are you kidding me right now? Anyway, the whole thing's fun. And you'll notice too, a lot of crossover actors, like a lot of the thugs and like, henchmen are the same in True Romance.
I did notice that.
Like the Tony Scott side players, like he just like calls them up. He's like, "Look, we're doing another one." It's
the
like
guy
It's like it's T Scott.
it's funny that you say that because I was going to point that out too because the guy that is the private security, the guy that's like, call me an ambulance.
Yeah.
I need an
Fuck you, I'm
ambulance.
bleeding.
Yeah, fuck you, I'm bleeding. Like, yeah, you have that perfect. Um, that guy is in this. Like, he's the guy that's like
Yeah.
beating them up for this in front of the Scrabble guy.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and
He's all the same people, man.
and yeah, so I did notice that too. So I don't. Do we want to get into our top five like
What
thing?
time is it? Do we have time? I don't want to
Yeah,
get cut off. Yeah, we can.
I
And if
think
we
we've
get
got.
cut off, we get cut off because we can sneak it in.
Yeah, let
Let's
me.
pop it up. You still got the Negron card?
There we go.
Okay,
Let me
this is
swing
interesting. Oh, this
swing
is
out.
sweet. Hello, people. Welcome to Lost Coffee's
Hi.
newness. This ain't Paraplane where we go twisting. We just go right into it. Sorry, Uncle
You can
Dan.
keep the bag.
It's like, sorry, Uncle Dan. She's like, look. Anyway, creep factor is funny on this because it's not high for me, but the parts that are creepy like Taylor Negron basically, pretty much. And like the lighting, like you said, and the jump scares, it's not creepy like at close range creepy or
Mm-mm.
Stepfather creepy or even Blowout creepy, where it's like sleazy and grimy, but it's creepy in a way that like the people that play villains are so etched into their characters, but they're the creepiest part. So for me, it's more
Yep.
like a 6 or 6.5, 7, because it's not really a creep factor kind of movie. It's more of a like an action, like you said, buddy cop film. So it doesn't ruin it for me, but the creep factor on this one isn't as high, except for Taylor Negron as Milo.
Yeah, exactly. That's the same exact thing. Like really it's Milo is super creepy. A couple henchmen have some creepiness to them, right? Like
Yep.
the guy that punches them a bunch with the
Yeah.
cigarette.
Yep.
Um, like those guys are creepy. But yeah, I'd say probably like a six. It's not very creepy. So
That pool scene, like he's by the way, when you said he's punching him, he's like, hoo, 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 hoo. Like, and he's like, you do it again, I'm gonna fucking kill you.
yeah,
Like, I was like, dude,
he's like,
don't. It's
don't
like,
kill
don't
Lindsey
push it.
Buckingham. Don't kill
Yeah,
Lindsey
it's like,
Buckingham.
don't push it. Is that Kim Coates that's punching him? It might be. I think it is Kim Coates.
Yeah, yeah,
The
it
actor,
is.
that
No,
creepy
it is.
actor.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah, he's the one that's punching him. Anyway, so anyway, what director's echelon, like for me, this is a good Tony Scott film, but he did a lot, right? Like he even did, I forgot he did fucking Top Gun, dog.
Hmm.
Um, but like
And
I was
Beverly
thinking,
Hills Cop too.
well, which is a good sequel. Man on Fire, like you're talking some good movies.
Hmm.
Crimson Tide.
Yep, he did
I
a
mean, True Romance
ton.
for me is number one.
Yep.
But he's done a lot of good movies. Was it Domino or was that Brian De Palma? No,
Nope. No, it's Tony Scott.
was that Tony Scott? He
Hmm.
started getting a little jumpy towards that time in his career, with just like everywhere. It's like Jesus, man, the camera's I got a headache. But like even up to Man on Fire with Denzel. I really like that movie. So for
Yeah.
me, it's like True Romance. This would slide in probably at number two for me, just because I don't love those other big budget films. Like I like Crimson Tide, I like Top Gun, blah blah blah. But like for me, it's the smaller, like these kind of movies he does on the side. So for me, it'd be like True Romance, this, Man on Fire, top three.
Uh, yeah,
Even though he's had bigger, better movies.
I have a True Romance, Last Boy Scout, and then I have Enemy of the State
Oh, that's also
is
God
my
damn.
number three, and then
It's also so good
but I'd also have like 3B would be Beverly Hills Cop 2 because it's
too.
just
Yep.
like
Because part Beverly Hills
amazing.
Cop 3 is the amusement park one, right? With Brigitte
Yeah,
Nielsen.
that's with Brigitte Nielsen's in 2 with
Two.
like
Yeah, you know, no, you're right. You're
the
right.
racetrack, yeah, with
Yeah,
the
yeah, you're
racetrack and
right.
everything.
You're right.
So
You're right. It's my bad. Anyway, so yeah, no, I think we're right on, and I didn't forget about Enemy of the State, but it's just so funny because it's so Tony Scott. You forget it's Tony Scott. Plus, Jason Lee dies on a BMX in the first half hour. It's like, all right, you know,
yep. Um,
because you made a phone call.
I blew up the building.
It's like,
I made a
'cause you
phone
made a
call.
phone call. Harry
Um,
call. Anyway, so yeah, stickies and slizzies and sidekicks. First of all, how about Kim Coates punching Bruce Willis, number one? How about D-Day from Animal House popping out the bathroom closet? What?
he's like I'm sleeping with your wife, but also here's this gig that if you want it,
He's
like
like,
here's the
look,
job.
I'm sleeping with your wife, but Joe, you need this. He's like, what? Wait a minute. He's like,
He's
and
like I'm
don't
gonna.
get in your car.
He's like yeah, like I'm gonna give you this job, but I'm also taking a shower in your shower.
He's like, look,
Sorry about that.
I sucked on your wife's nips last night, but now I'd like to, but now I'd like to hire you. So, is that too adult for Lost Coffee? Have we gone overboard?
No, no,
I,
that's perfect.
that
I
I think
mean,
that's
it was in the movie, so
I
I
think
mean,
that's the first time nips got dropped on Lost Coffee.
yeah.
I gotta do a fake ad with nips. It's like, Nancy's nips, nip them up. Nancy's nips. All right, dude. So part of this movie's charm, like all our films, Green, is that it has lots of great side players, including but not limited to Noble Willingham as Shelley Marcone. It's got Chelsea Ross as the senator, the guy that, blackmails Joe Hallenbeck, and we got a very young Holly Berry. We've got, as we said many times already, Taylor Negron as Milo. But it just never ceases to end. I mean, dude, the inventor of Tybo is in the first 10 minutes as a key character.
Well, like
The
you said,
inventor of Tybo
and D-Day from
and D-Day
Animal
from
House.
Animal House.
So
Yes.
they're
So
all in it.
anyway, what do you think, dude? I think it's top notch. That's what makes Tony Scott fun.
Well, I think also, I think the daughter is really
Yeah.
excellent in this as well too. Like she like that's the first time
Danielle
I probably
Harris,
that's probably the first time I saw a child just swear incessantly the
yeah,
entire movie
not act like a kid.
and not act like a kid. Yes,
Yeah.
like give it back like adult style. Where I was like, wow, like the last one, we like for Manhunt, we're like, I have seen an adult movie. Like was
Yes.
like this is that first time where I'm like, wow, this is somebody that just gave a performance that's like more mature than what she really
Right.
is in real life.
And
So
was written by a guy that clearly was like 13-year-olds probably talk like this. So why wouldn't I write it like this? It's like, all right, dude,
yeah, that's
you
a good
know?
point. Like written from the Shane Black point of view. But yeah,
Right.
she's awesome in that too. And like the whole cast is like really I know Damon Wayans and Bruce Willis are like the main people, but the all the supporting characters are really like
Oh, hell yeah.
what make it. So oh,
Dude, by the
and
way,
also
that
Rick Dukeman is in
oh
this
yeah, Rick
movie.
Ducommun. Yeah.
Yeah, like where it's
Yeah.
like where the car flips over and he's the
Comedian.
guy.
Yes,
Yep,
he's the guy that owns the house. That's a great call. He
yep,
comes out in
yep,
his robe. He's like, "What the fuck?" He's like, "I'm calling the cops."
yep.
It's like Louis Anderson and Ferris Bueller. Anyway, no, I was thinking about this too, and in this film when it came out, um, Bruce Willis was after Die Hard, I think this was one of his better movies. Like I think this kind of
Yes.
saved him from like the Die Hard backlash. But for me, that one scene, and I have to say 1A and 1B, I can't. There's too many good ones in this movie, but the forest scene with the puppet with the gun in it, where the daughter gives him the puppet. It's like the kind that shoots bullets.
Yeah,
And he's like,
yeah, yeah.
"What?" He's like, "Run." He's like, And then the scene at the poolside scene where he hits him and he goes, "You hit me again." Like I already mentioned in this episode, but like that movie, that scene with Kim Coates terrified me, and at the same time made me feel really good with all inside of 3 minutes.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Again, there's so many single scenes to select from. I would say the car rolling down the hill where they're like
Oh,
trying to outrun the
so
rolling
good.
car. There's another version of the car down the hill scene when they're trying to get away just after the scene that you just talked about where they're
Right, right. No,
escaping
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and they're flying down in like a
Like
Sunfire, a Pontiac Sunfire or
yeah.
something like that. And and the roof flies off of the car because it's a convertible because like
It,
everybody was like rocking those like canvas
it's so
tops and everything.
LA.
So like
Yes.
there's that. There's the scene where Halle Berry gets shot and because it's kind of out of nowhere
It
and
is.
it's jarring and that I
It's
like
a
that
good
scene.
call.
But like if I had to pick one scene that I think about immediately when I think about this movie is the scene where Damon Wayans jumps on the horse, grabs the football, throws the football, hits the senator in the face, and this is probably like. And I was trying to do the math. I don't even care about the math anymore. But this has got to be like 100-yard throw,
Oh
and
yeah.
like a
Oh yeah.
100-yard throw because
On a
he's
horse.
on a horse. He's throwing it up from the field. Anyway, hits the dude directly in the nose, breaks his nose. The ball explodes because Milo shoots the ball instead of the senator. Um, and then Milo ends up getting pitched into the helicopter, and like the entire crowd goes silent because
Right,
they just saw
right.
him get like blended in front of everybody.
I love it.
That scene is pretty awesome.
I
Like
agree. Not
so.
because of the blending, but because of all of it, like you said, but you don't care. At that point, you're having
Oh
so much
yeah.
fun. You're like, oh, the football blocked the bullet. Of course it did. It's
Oh,
Jimmy effing Dix.
and he throws it with
Yeah.
with a hand that had just been shot like 5 minutes previous. Like he
I think
got
it's
shot
funny.
right in his throwing hand. They wrap a T-shirt around it, and
He's
then
like, I'm good
he makes a 100 yard throw.
on the
Like
money.
oh, right
Plus,
on
he
the
doesn't look
money.
like an NFL quarterback. Like, he looks like an in living color comedian. It was weird casting for sure. But whatever. I don't
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
man. Like I said, this movie, though, when you add all the scenes up, it was the first time I was really like, oh my gosh, Shane Black. Then he came out with all, Long Kiss Goodnight, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang's another really good script. If
yep.
you've never seen that with
That's
Downey and Val Kilmer, good movie.
that you want to talk about a one-off movie.
That's a
That's
good
definitely
movie, man.
like that's definitely like a divide the room type of movie. People either love
Yeah.
that movie or hate that movie
I love
a
it
lot of
just
times.
because I like him. Like I like him as a screenwriter. So for me, it was easy. But my trust rating on Last Boy Scout is probably even higher, just a little bit higher than Blowout. And
Mhm.
again, this is where Lost Copy differs. Not because I think it's a better made film. It's not even close. But like, if Blowout's on and Last Boy Scout's on, I'm watching Last Boy Scout, man. I can't help it. Like I'm sucked in. I can't. It's just maybe it's a time in my life when I was like 19 when it came out or whatever. Um, but and I saw it in theaters, which I did not with Blowout because it came out in 1981 and I was 9 years old. But I would give it a nine, man. I would give it a nine for me.
Yeah, for
Nine on the trust.
trust rating. Yeah, I think it's
Yep.
got. Yeah, I would say nine is probably a
And oh,
solid.
and only not a higher because of the just like you said, some of the outlandish suspension of disbelief and like there's so much going on in the plot that sometimes it's hard to keep track, but you're like, fuck it, I don't care. There's cars and people dying and funny stuff going on, so who cares?
Yeah,
Anyway.
yeah, and yeah, I would say nine's probably a solid rating, and it's probably not 10 just because of the time capsule piece of it, where there is some heavy misogyny,
Oh yeah.
homophobia, there's some
Racism.
sexism, racism, uh, all that good stuff is in there, and but not anything that wasn't of the time.
Yeah.
It's not blatant. It would be probably considered blatant now. But with that said, the action in it is great. I think despite the onset tension between the actors, you really can't tell in the movie. And honestly, the I think the chemistry on screen between Damon Wayans and Bruce Willis is amazing. Like I think
Oh yeah,
it's like
I
it's one of my
agree.
fun, like my favorite like buddy cop type of movies out there. And yeah, I think it's like it's got some sports to it. It's got some like little like government intrigue to it. A lot of like funny one-liners. So yeah, it's got something for everybody. So nine as a pretty solid trust rating on that.
The Last
And
Boy Scout is one of those movies you have to have in your, you know, what I call your COVID box. Like if you're locked in for a while, you better have a Lost Boy Scout copy on hand. Because look, Wi-Fi can go down.
well, and I would also say that
That's all I'm saying.
like anybody that ever had a an HBO cable subscription
Oh,
definitely saw The Last Boy Scout because HBO was like, you know what, we should keep this on here for another 5 months.
well, what's funny too is that stupid Monday Night Football song or whatever that came on the beginning of the movie. They dun, 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 dun,
Are
dun,
you
dun, dun,
ready
dun,
for
dun.
some football?
You were just sucked in. You're like, what is going on?
Yeah,
It's like
like oh,
immediately.
football
It's
in
like,
America or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah,
this is so great.
yeah.
Anyway, no, I think so too. Dude, listen, next week though, we're not really turning back to like Manhunter, but we're going to our first horror movie. Well, it's
Mhm.
considered a horror movie. I just consider it creepy as hell. But next time we're going to talk about 1987's The Stepfather, starring Terrence O'Quinn,
Mm.
of course, as one of the greatest creepies, slizzies of all time.
Yep.
Gerald Blake.
Tour de force. Uh,
Oh,
for
so
sure.
good.
Like
So good.
it's so bad, so good, so creepy. and yeah, it's got everything for me. And I mean, everything, even the overacting is just absolutely
Oh,
perfect. Like,
I can't. It's the only time I can't even eat Rice Krispies anymore because there's that one scene where he puts them and he's like, mm-hmm.
it's
Like, what the fuck,
yeah,
dude?
this dude,
What the
dude
fuck?
is a killing machine. So that'll be a lot of fun to talk about Stepfather, especially as we're getting ready to go into like Thanksgiving and stuff
Oh
like
yeah, let's
that.
talk
So
about killer dads. Way to
killer,
go, guys. Welcome to
killer,
Lost Coffee.
killer dads with
Timely.
like multiple families. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, we'll talk. We'll probably spend a good 10 minutes of that episode just talking about the scene where he's like, "Wait a minute, who am I here?"
So I mean, it's probably the reason I'm like a Stereo Quinn fan.
Oh, dude, of course,
He's
so
um
strong.
he's so super good in this. But we'll talk about Stepfather next week, and like, subscribe. All this stuff will be out on social
Lost
media.
Copy.
We're on Spotify now, so Lost Copy Podcast out there, and yeah, that's it for me.
Check us out, y'all. Andy Gop out.